This is UncleTboxing. I'm here at the weigh-in of Charlie Edwards fighting Marino, but that's not what we're going to talk about first. We're going to talk about Buatsi.
Oh right, okay.
Okay. When Buatsi, when you put up Buatsi fighting, what was the last guy that you fought? Quinlan, yeah, that's the word. And a few people was making complaints about that.
Yeah.
And you wrote in one of the comments that Jose Burton refused to fight that fight, or his team refused it. Then obviously I listened to podcasts and everything. I listened to Toe to Toe when Gallagher came out and saying Buatsi doesn't really mention Jose Burton. I'm surprised the British board didn't want him to fight Joshua Buatsi, and Jose Burton in another interview saying Joshua Buatsi doesn't want to say his name.
Because people don't understand that in boxing you go through a management team to make a fight. You have to speak to his official management company to make a fight. So when we did that fight, we spoke to MTK, who felt that unless there was just a ridiculous amount of money for this fight, right now that wasn't the fight for Jose Burton. The fighter will always say, and it's the truth when they say, I'll fight him. Yeah, I'll fight him. But they're guided by advisors, and the advisors say, look, we'll look at it, but right now we want to get him and give him a couple of fights and then build him into a big fight. Okay, so that's the situation with that fight. After the Quinlan fight, we said let's do the Burton fight, and it was like, not really. We want to bring him back with a couple of fights, and then so that's the truth.
Do you know when next is fighting, Jose Burton?
Who's that? Jose Burton? No, possibly in May on our card. He did box on a show recently, but we want him to fight Craig Richards. That's the fight that I'd like to make. Again, it's like, you live in a world right now where fighters want so much money for particular fights that sometimes not everyone can get made.
Okay. Let's talk about who is fighting now, Joshua Buatsi. His opponent is, in his last 10 fights, he's won 5 knockouts, so he's a live opponent.
He's a good fighter. Look, he deserves his shot at the British title, Liam Conroy. Unfortunately for him, he's fighting a fighter that I believe is already good enough to win a world title in Josh Buatsi. But Josh hasn't had the ring time yet. So you can't just put a guy in who hasn't beaten any world-class opposition into a world title fight if he is such a valuable commodity, if you like, or asset or brand as Joshua Buatsi. You have to get it right. So therefore you have to take the right steps and go down the right path. The British title is always a great title to win, especially for a young fighter. I expect him to beat Liam Conroy. I expect a tough fight. I expect a brave man, a proud man, but I expect a man that will not be good enough to beat Joshua Buatsi. Not because he ain't a good fighter, but Conroy's not a world-class fighter. He's a British level, maybe a European level light heavyweight. Josh is in another. I rate him so highly. I believe he can fight and mix with and beat the likes of Bivol and Kovalev, but you've got to develop him properly. Because, like I said, when you've got a fighter that special, you can't ruin it. So let him do his thing, go through the correct processes to be that star.
Talking about Bivol, he looks like a very solid boxer.
Bivol's excellent fighter, yeah, excellent fighter.
Good hands, quick. Great feet. How far away do you think Buatsi would be from a great boxer like that?
I think he gives Bivol an unbelievable fight now. But I'm not looking to gamble with Joshua Buatsi at that level right now, because that would be poor management. That would be poor advisory. He will beat those guys when he's ready. I'm only talking about 4, 5, 6 fights. I'm talking about a year, tops. But you've got to let him go through those processes. The danger is he's had 3 first-round KOs. He may win in the first round on Saturday. He has the power and the spite to do it. If he does that, it's like, oh, another first-round win. It's like, no, but this is happening for a reason, So as you go through the levels, maybe he blitzes them all. Or maybe he boxes at the Garden on the Joshua card against a top 15 guy who takes him 7 or 8 rounds. I actually want that. I hope Liam Conroy can take him into deep waters. But I just think at this particular level, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to be able to compete with him.
So providing result goes his way, he's not looking to defend it on them.
Yeah, no problem defend it. I get Burton is a great defence. I've got to say, I think Callum Johnson and Buatsi, Callum Johnson, in terms of paper, is the #1 light heavyweight in the UK right now. He has the best wins out of anybody in that division right now, and the best calibre of opposition, right? And him and Buatsi, by the way, is an unbelievable fight, and you may see that down the line. But I'm looking for him, if there's a fight with, we wanted the Yarde fight. If there's a Callum Johnson fight, it could be a big fight. The Burton fight's an interesting fight. The Craig Richards fight, they're the kind of fights that could be British title defences. But you've got Callum Johnson wants a world title shot. Yarde may fight for the world title. So really, that leaves you with Burton, Richards, these kind of guys. So. Yeah, I expect him to defend the British title at some point if he can win it on Saturday.
For what you've heard so far, yes or no? Do you think Yarde is going to fight Kovalev?
I'm not sure. If you asked me to make a decision, I would say no.
Okay. Are they the A side at the Yarde? Emirates Stadium?
I said, someone asked me earlier, I said, it's very easy to understand this. Kovalev's making $2 million a fight. Yarde's making about 50k. So who do you think's the A side? And by the way, the WBA have already determined who the A side is because it's 75% to Kovalev and 25% to Yarde. So, but listen, what Tunde said was, I went to 2 Kovalev fights, and the crowd weren't great. It's correct. I've also seen a couple of Yarde fights at the Brentwood Centre, where there were probably about 200 people at. So, But what Tunde did say, and I've said this in another interview, he said, in my opinion. Right? So you can't knock it because it's his opinion. It don't matter if you think he's wrong or I think he's wrong or the world thinks he's wrong. But he is like Chris Eubank Senior on gas. You know what I mean?
Let's move along to the a little bit heavier guys. Lawrence Okolie fighting Wadi Camacho. When I started being a fan of boxing, I met Wadi Camacho and I bought 4 ringside tickets to watch him fight, and that was Anthony Joshua's debut.
Okay, good. That was my show. I'm glad you spent your money with me. Well done. You're a very wise man.
It was a good show as well, but results didn't go his way.
Yeah.
Was
that Tony Conquest?
Yes.
Good fight. That was.
But obviously we saw what Joshua did.
Yeah.
He knocked out his. I've forgotten the name of the Italian guy.
Yeah,
unbeaten fighter. So I was well entertained.
He never boxed since, actually.
Really? Poor guy. But so I've been following him since. I've seen the ups and downs. So what threat does he pose to someone like Wadi?
Threat is that he can punch. Threat is he's very experienced.
Yeah.
Threat is he's got a lot of confidence right now. I mean, he went from a situation where he was finished really. But after the Chamberlain fight, which was a really good fight by the way, I thought Wadi might be done. But I really admire the way that he's actually rebuilt his team and come back. I think Steve Goodwin's done a really good job to manage him to this position. He won a Commonwealth title, beat Arfan Iqbal, who's no mug, a bit lazy at times, but still a talented fighter. So he deserves this shot, this opportunity. I just feel like when you get hit by Lawrence Okolie, you're going to be in trouble. And I think he's improving a lot. When people talk about Lawrence holding, I think fighters should want him to hold. Because if he boxes you at distance and you get hit by those super long arms, he's very, very powerful. So Wadi's got to be very careful in this fight. But at the same time, if you're too careful, you're not going to win the fight. So it's a very, very difficult fight for Wadi Camacho. And I don't think it lasts too long. In fact, I think Buatsi Conroy and Okolie Camacho will probably both be finished in 3 rounds in each fight.
Wow.
Because someone's going to get knocked out, and in the cruiserweights they can both punch, but Wadi has to take chances, and that's really dangerous against Lawrence Okolie.
It's going to be an exciting fight for both fights. In terms of Lawrence Okolie, because I look at it from a fan and I care for the boxers as well. It seems to me he likes to rush himself in terms of choosing big fights, which is not experienced enough for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's something that he wants to do, and that's something that he did a lot in the amateurs as well. I think that's good. I think you should be rewarded for that, but actually he gets criticised for his performances when effectively they're performances by a guy that's not really necessarily ready for that level, but he's still winning. So like when he boxed Askin's a good fighter. Askin's European level cruiserweight, and he beat him without much experience. And he did the same in the amateurs. He didn't have a lot of amateur experience when he won the European title, boxed in the Olympics. So he's been doing that all along, and I think he buzzes off that. But it is dangerous. And listen, he may end up fighting Lebedev for the world title after this fight, which again is well beyond what he should be doing.
I agree.
But
I agree.
you know, sport's about timing, and if you can make the right decisions at the right time, you could be in a great position.
So the other domestic fights like Riakporhe.
Yeah, Riakporhe's an interesting fight. I think Riakporhe, you know, like
With the
Dillian said,
backstory
would
with
like
Dillian
a couple of fights first. Sam Hyde, Craig Glover is a really good young cruiserweight coming through. You know, Chris Billam-Smith. There's some good fights.
Eddie, I've got a few more questions to ask you, but Rob Turbo done me a favour.
He's behind you, telling you to hurry
he
up.
done me a favour to let me through, so
Okay.
I'm not going to hold it. I appreciate your time, and it's all
What do
about
you think
speaking.
of that Rob Tebbett?
He's one of the best. He's
So?
the best.
In what way?
The way he asks
As
his
a person
questions,
or his questions?
his way he asks questions,
Yeah.
his vocabs.
A lot of people,
and,
like between you and me, a lot of people
yeah.
on the scene saying he's a bit arrogant.
I don't see it. I don't see it. It's more likely to get a little bit of arrogance from Coogan, but
Oh,
Coogan,
did you hear that? You're more likely to see arrogance from Coogan.
well, I'm a big. No,
Yes,
I'm a,
Uncle T.
No, I'm a big fan of Coogan as well.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
cover your tracks.
No,
yeah,
no, I subscribe to both of them and I watch them religiously to try and better my interviewing.
You've done well. I thought you've done very well.
Well, I'll get better in a
And
couple
I like
of
your
years.
Uncle T body warmer as well.
Thank you very much.
Are
Thank
you Uncle T?
I'm Uncle T.
Nice one.
I'm not like Boxing Social where they employ Robert Turbot.
Yeah, you are.
I own my own outfit.
What's your name?
Tunji.
Okay.
Tunji.
I'll just call you Uncle T.
Just call me. It's easier.
mate.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Thank you.